Welcome back to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into something really crucial today. That difference between just reacting to our kids and actually connecting with them. So we're doing a deep dive into the work of Brian Post. He's got some powerful insights on emotional regulation, attachment, really how it all works in families.
Right. And his main point, the real core of it, is that genuine parenting power. It doesn't come from strategies or controlling things outside of you. It comes from managing your own internal state first.
Yeah.
If you depend on anything external, well, you're kind of setting yourself up for chaos.
Exactly. Looking inward, not outward.
And we really need to get why something as simple as breathing is like the absolute key to unlocking that internal ability. It's foundational.
Absolutely. And before we even get to the breathing part, Brian Post talks about how change even happens in the brain. He says there are only two ways.
Only two ways to physically change those neural pathways.
And understanding that is, well, it's essential if you want to stop stress from just completely wiping out your thinking right when your child needs you the most. So yeah, let's unpack that science bit first.
Okay. So the principle Brian Post lays out is this. The brain changes through repetition and emotional impact. That's it.
Repetition and emotional impact.
Okay. So if you want to change that automatic stress reaction, that freak out moment, you have to practice something else repeatedly to build a new pathway.
And that practice is the breathing he talks about, the 3D breaths.
Yes, the 3D breath. And he's specific. It means really filling your lungs, front, back, sides, using your diaphragm. It's a full conscious breath. But the repetition, that's where most people miss the boat.
Right, because there's a really crucial detail about when to practice it. You can't just whip it out in a crisis, can you?
Exactly. Brian Post really hammers this home. You must practice this breathing when you're calm. If you wait until you're stressed, forget it. It won't work.
Why not? What happens?
Because, he says, like 99% of the time, the moment stress hits, what do? We stop breathing. Or we breathe shallowly. That conscious breathing pathway just shuts down. So practicing when calm is like installing the software before the emergency happens. It makes it available.
Okay, that makes total sense. You're building the muscle, the default response, when things are easy, so it's there when they're hard.
Yeah.
He also connects this self-awareness piece to looking at your own history, like your birth story. Why dig into the past for present moment regulation?
Well, it's about developing awareness without judgment. That's key. Looking at your past, your early experiences. It's not about finding fault or shame or blaming anyone. Brian Post is really clear. The reason to press into that discomfort, to look at those patterns, is because that's the only way to find your own innate inner power.
So it's less about therapy, more about self-discovery for empowerment.
Precisely. It's about growing beyond what you thought your limits were. Moving towards real mindfulness, you just notice your patterns. There's that reaction again. No judgment. You need to know what your go-to reaction is so you can catch it, interrupt it with that breath you've practiced.
Okay. And if we don't do that, if we stay unaware, don't practice the breathing.
Yeah.
What's the actual biological hit when stress does arrive? What happens in the brain?
Oh, it's significant. It's basically cognitive chaos, which is, terrible for parenting. Brian Post points to neuroscience here, specifically Joseph Ledoux's work. Ledoux found that under intense stress, our thinking literally becomes confused and distorted.
Confused and distorted thinking. Okay.
And maybe even more critically, short-term memory gets suppressed.
Well, hold on. Suppressed short-term memory. That sounds really bad in a parenting moment.
Yeah.
Why is that specific piece so damaging?
Think about it. Parenting effectively requires making choices, using strategies, remembering what works. Right? Maybe you just learned a new way to talk to your kid, a specific phrase or technique. That knowledge, it lives in your short-term memory.
Oh, okay.
The second major stress hits, bam, that memory access is gone. You can't think clearly about the present. You can't recall the solution you learned 5 minutes ago. All you're left with is the old, deep-seated, usually reactive programming, fight or flight.
Wow. Okay, I see how that connects directly to what Brian Post calls the matrix and this idea of victimhood. Can you explain that matrix concept? How does this stress reaction lock us in?
Yeah, the matrix, as Brian Post uses it, is basically the default, often fear-based way society tells us to parent or interact, usually based on external control, punishment, reaction. So when stress hits and your thinking goes offline, you feel completely overwhelmed, confused. What do?
You look for help outside yourself.
Exactly. You look for someone or something else to fix it, a professional, a method, maybe even medication. You become dependent. That feeling of helplessness, that dependency, that's the victimhood trap.
So the adult feels helpless because their own internal system failed them.
Right. And then it gets really problematic in the home because the moment your child's behavior a tantrum, defiance, whatever triggers that stress response in you, you start to feel victimized by your own child.
Oof.
And in that instant, the roles flip. The child becomes, in your stressed out mind, the perpetrator, the one causing your pain.
That's a heavy realization if the child is seen as the perpetrator.
The whole dynamic breaks down. Brian Post argues really forcefully that if the parent sees the child as the perpetrator, the parent immediately loses the ability to be the significant regulatory figure in that child's life.
You can't regulate someone you see as attacking you.
You can't. You can't support or nurture or connect with the perceived source of your distress. So who's left to help the child regulate their big feelings? Nobody. The child is emotionally abandoned in that moment, and the parent is stuck feeling like a victim, reacting powerlessly. It's a terrible cycle.
Which underscores why the adult has to reclaim their own power first. It's non-negotiable. So how does the breathing and the awareness directly counteract that shutdown?
It's the interruption. That conscious 3D breath literally interrupts the physiological stress cascade. It stops the process that shuts down memory and distorts thinking. So your thinking stays clearer, your short-term memory stays online.
Meaning you can actually think, problem solve.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can access solutions, make conscious choices. Instead of just reacting from that triggered primitive place, you get your power back in the moment.
Okay. Then Brian Post poses this really direct question to the listener, right? About emotional availability.
He does. He asks, in what ways can you improve your emotional availability? And the answer, wouldn't you know it, loops right back. The absolute key is slowing down, breathing, and growing in that non-judgmental awareness of your own internal state.
That awareness is so critical. And stress doesn't just mess with our thinking. It messes with our perception of time, too, according to Post.
Oh, absolutely. He points out 3 things stress does to time. First, it makes you react from the past using old, often ineffective patterns.
Okay, reacting from the past.
Second, it makes you obsess about the future, worrying about consequences, what might happen next.
Right, go what ifs.
And the third crucial thing, it pulls you completely out of the present moment.
And if you're not present, you can't connect. You can't co-regulate with your child who is right there needing you now.
Exactly. You're lost in the past or the future. And to help us grasp the kind of awareness needed to stay present, Brian Post offers a definition. He defines emotion simply as energy in motion. Emotion. Energy in motion.
Energy in motion, I like that.
It frames it as something dynamic, something that's meant to flow. We need to be present to notice that energy, that emotion, and guide it, rather than getting swept away by it or stuck in it.
Okay, this is great grounding. Let's get really practical now. Brian Post gives a very specific exercise for parents to use right in the heat of the moment. What is it?
Yeah, it's designed for when your child is upset, yelling, crying, melting down, whatever's happening. Step 1, do nothing externally. Just stop. And instead, breathe that conscious 3D breath and simply observe your own internal process. What are you feeling? Where in your body?
It's just pause and observe internally. For how long?
Just for seconds. He's clear, it's not about taking an hour time out. It's a brief, sharp interruption of your own reactive cycle. Just long enough to break the pattern.
Okay, breathe and observe internally for a few seconds. Then what?
Step 2 comes later, after things have calmed down. You reflect. You ask yourself, how might my feelings and maybe my actions have been different if I had not stopped to breathe and notice?
The reflection reinforces the learning.
Precisely. Connecting the pause and breath to a potentially different, better outcome, that's what helps wire in the new neural pathway. It proves the value of the pause to your brain.
That simple pause becomes the whole pivot point.
It really is. Brian Post sees this practice, the pause, the breath, the reflection, as the way you actually step out of what he calls the traditional fear-based matrix practices of parenting.
Away from the control and punishment model.
And move into a love-based consciousness, one that's actually rooted in connection, understanding, and your own internal regulation first. It breaks that cycle of reaction and feeling victimized.
Okay, so let's pull the main threads together from Brian Post's work here. Big takeaway number 1.
Yeah.
Self-regulation has to come first. You can't co-regulate if you're not regulated yourself. It's just impossible.
Foundational, absolutely.
And second, that breathing isn't just calming down. It's actually a neurobiological tool to keep your thinking brain online. Keep your short-term memory accessible, keep your problem-solving skills active when you're under pressure.
Yeah, it's about maintaining cognitive function, not just relaxation. So what's the bottom line for you listening? Brian Post is essentially saying the power to handle any situation, any meltdown, any moment of chaos with your child, it's already inside you. It's innate.
You just need to access it.
And you access it, you restore that power simply by consciously practicing that breath when you're calm and bringing awareness, that non-judgmental noticing, into the moments when stress hits.
So we'll leave you with this question directly from Brian Post's framework. If the big goal is shifting from feeling like a victim of your child's behavior to being their significant regulatory figure, what's one small specific time this week you can commit to practicing that 3D breathing when you are already calm? Just embedding that pathway, practicing before you need it. Give it a try. Notice what happens.